Objections? And hearing no objections, the minutes are approved by unanimous consent for the October 9th meeting. And next we have to set some public hearing dates.
Yes. You have in your packet the local regulation 55 inspection and upgrade of substandard sewage disposal systems within the Hummock Pond Watershed Protection District. What we're looking for is an extension of dates for inspections for sections 55.02 A and B, which are the compliance requirements. You have in your packets up-to-date numbers regarding inspections to date.
Is that after the printout of the regs, Richard, just to get the...
Yes.
Okay, I see them, yeah.
12:13.
The first page was 1:30:13.
And this is
The second page is 12:18:14.
So we can see the change.
Yeah. There are very little changes, to be
I was
honest
going
with
to
you.
say, yeah, we picked up, what, 2 passes and
Yeah.
4 failures out of a
Yeah.
remaining number of 70, so not a lot of people came forward,
No.
did they?
So, Richard, how much time expired for these inspections total?
Between the two dates,
The whole year?
almost a year, yes.
inspected 16. Wait a second. Past 82.
What I'm asking for in the section 52.02, which is a little bit further back to the left, the current date is March 1st, 2014, which obviously has got expired. I'm looking for a new date of December 31st, 2015. If approved, this will get sent out as a hard date with a reminder to individuals of the penalties associated with not having their systems inspected. And in Zone B, the current date is June 1st, 2015, which we haven't arrived at yet, and I'm proposing May 31st, 2016. Essentially, I'm giving them an additional 12 months.
I guess my concern is, haven't we gone through this before?
Yes, we have.
And
This is not unusual. We've done it in both Nantucket and the town watershed protection district. Some of it is, there are a number of issues here. These numbers may not be exactly correct. My inspectors submit inspections not one at a time, but many at a time. So there may be some held out there that are waiting to come in yet. I suspect there won't be that many. However, the other issue is we only have truly 2 active individuals doing pumping, doing inspections. That does become somewhat problematic when they have other responsibilities. I don't think that giving them another year is outrageous here. We are about to enter discussions concerning sewer in some of these areas, and I think that needs to come to fruition before we do indeed start finding these people.
Can you get all the, if you're giving them an extra year, can you have everything inspected, all those systems inspected within that year? I mean, it's no sense in giving them a year if you can't, if it can't be done in a
Well,
year.
there's just some people that just won't respond.
So what I'm saying is, if you'll just have to give them another extension if the year runs out.
See,
Not necessarily.
I have a problem with this because we've done this before, you know, and we have reasons for the regulations, and we have reasons why we need adequate septic systems. I mean, read the front page of the paper today. Reminds you about shellfish and eelgrass and nitrogen, and one of our responsibilities is not only health but environmental protection. So I have problems extending it.
Well, again, there's...
I don't know what the rest of the board feels, but...
Yeah, I think we have to talk about what we're doing, because otherwise, Richard, even though sewer things are being discussed, my sense is for this area, it's not, I mean, the first blush is supposedly Nantucket and Somerset. I'm not sure why even Somerset, but anyway. So I don't see this coming up in any immediate time frame of 4 years. I'm just making up numbers, you know?
In discussing this with the consultants, Somerset will be done first, prior to Nantucket, simply because of a logistical issue in the transportation of the sewage to the sewage treatment plant.
Yeah, well, I think that, we'll see. I'm not sure
Okay.
about that. That's a
My-
different
I-
subject.
I still have my question. My question is, if you give them a hard date of May of 16, can you get the things done? Because if you say to them, you have to have this thing done by 5/16, and you don't have the people to do it, then they're going to go back and say, listen, I've been sitting here and no one came to inspect my system.
But
So
Jim,
if you make it a hard date, you've got to be able to back the date up with people that can do the job.
I don't sense from Richard that that's the problem.
He just said he'd like to make this a hard date.
No, I understand, but what I mean is, you know, I may be wrong, I think the issue of getting it done, there may be limitations on the ability of the inspectors to get to them, but I sense it's more the lack of people coming forward. Yeah, so,
Yes.
if they haven't come forward now, why are they ever gonna come forward?
Well, I understand that, but what I'm saying is, let's just say you make it a hard date and they all come forward and they say, okay, can we do it?
Well, if they all,
Art, you have a comment, then
Yeah,
we'll...
what we've done in the past, and it worked well, was, which answers your question, is if they can prove through an inspector that they are on that list prior to that date, but he doesn't get to them, they're in compliance.
Right, so they've reached out to us, they've asked for an inspection,
Okay.
that's not what's happening now.
So that addresses.
All right, so you can't make it a hard date that they have to have it inspected by that date. By that date, they only have to be on the list.
They've lined it up.
Okay, fine, that's a completely
So,
different.
but why give them an extension then, if they can get on the list? I mean, how's the process work? They call up and say, I need an inspection.
The inspectors receive the phone call from the property owner. Those inspectors will call the health department, and either Mr. Crowley or myself will visit the site and watch the inspection and agree or disagree, and with whether it's a pass or fail or technical.
So you're not doing the actual inspection, you're observing the inspection.
What's that? I'm sorry.
You're not doing the actual inspection.
We
you're
are witnessing the actual inspection.
You'll do the inspection.
yes, right.
Well, let me ask you something. Why can't all these people be sent a registered letter from the Board of Health or the town or whoever's going to send them a letter, say, look, this is what it is. We want return request. You know, we want a signature request saying that you've got this thing. This is the drop dead date. You must be either on the list or you must be inspected by May of 2016.
That's what I'm asking for.
Oh, so they will individually be notified? Okay, we don't have to wait for them to call.
Oh, no. If you approve these dates, they have to be made aware of them, and a mass mailing will go out. And we learned the hard way through the septic issue that we've just gone through, that they need to go out, return receipt requested, no matter what the cost is.
I just have a problem with that 16 date. I don't know.
I do too, Malcolm. I think it's too long.
And because it seems to me, I have a short memory sometimes, but we did this a year or so ago. We extended dates, yes?
But if we don't have as many as we don't have done, by shortening the date, inspectors can do just so many in a given period of time.
That's fine, but like what Art said, you get on the list.
Okay.
If they respond, that's what we're after.
Right.
So how many
Right.
people, Richard, how many people are we talking about?
Look at the numbers.
400?
Well, it depends on what zone we're talking about. In Zone A, there are
108.
there are
So 370 in total between the two sites.
What
Yes.
is it?
370 between the A and
To
B
do.
to do.
We have 370. How long does it take to do them, Steve?
Well, if everything goes, I mean, I could do at least maybe 2 a day if things go all right.
Okay, so the 2 a day, 370. So what does that give you?
but
180
again,
days.
He has other responsibilities.
No, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if he does 2 a day, you got 180 days. That's 360. Okay? So he's not going to be able to do them. Is anyone who else does them?
Hughes
George-
Pumping does them.
George, the surveyors do a few, but then they call me or George to do one.
Right, so-
because it's
Depends, they-
My
they're-
question is, do we have people on board that are willing to do this in 180 days?
Now, when you say people on board, are you talking
I'm talking like Steve.
Pumpers.
Pumping, yeah.
in 180 days?
Yeah.
I don't think we can do it in 180 days.
So then,
That's why I want to extend the date. Let us get a running start at this with a return receipt requested certified letter, cover all of our bases, inform them you either need to have an inspection or be on an inspector's list, and that list will come to our department. If you're not on that list or inspected within the date specified within the regulations, we will initiate fine proceedings.
And the date of the regulations now are, I'm sorry,
The regulation for Zone A was March 1st, 2014.
which has gone by.
The Zone B is June 1st, 2015, so they've still got 6 months.
so you want to extend it a year for each.
That's not a hard and fast number. You can do what the board may
And,
do with its wishes.
Other comments, and then we'll move on.
Well, it takes time. Nantucket Harbor started in the end of 2002, and when did we finally finish those up? 2010 or 11?
Yeah,
Past
must have been
that.
10 or 11, yeah.
It's,
So
Nantucket, same thing. It was, I mean, when it first, in Nantucket Harbor, there was some people that came down from off island and tried to do some things. People hired them. It turned into a mess. They're no longer doing them anymore.
right. But all I'm asking is, are we looking at something that can't be done
No.
with the date?
But Jim, I think the date, again, we're sort of going around.
What happens
circles.
even
Yeah,
with the
we're
date,
gonna-
which happened in Nantucket and Nantucket, it was when the date went by, and I came in with a list. I said, all these people called me, but I haven't got there. They were good. And then you sent out a fine letter to so many people, and when they got that, they called.
So we're going to talk about this for 2 more minutes, and then we're going to move
Well,
on.
Malcolm, let me ask you then. You're not happy with the date. What do you suggest?
I'm talking my I want to get people on the list.
I'll make a suggestion.
Okay.
Why don't we go to 6/30/15, period, and they got to get on the list. If they're on the list, they're good, Jim.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that's all we're saying.
And if
All
the
right.
inspection takes longer, then they're on the...
That would be Zone A, correct?
We can always extend it again, but if you extend it already, they won't respond until December.
Right.
Okay, so 6/30/15 for Zone A. What about
both
Zone
of
B?
For both of them?
Both of them, yeah.
Okay.
6:30.
They're all talking to one another, they know what's going on.
6:30:15. And this letter will say you have to be inspected or or request one?
You either have to have your system inspected or be on an inspector's
You
list.
have to have called up and say, put me on the list.
And if you don't get on the list, how, are you going to
There is
follow
a
up?
fine associated with this, and you will be fined on a daily basis.
But are you going to follow up before 6:30:15? Well, you'll see who's not on the list by 6:30.
Well, these letters will go out right away.
Yeah, but I mean, those that do not respond by 6:30:15, you'll follow up again, yes?
Yeah,
You'll find them.
we'll find them.
You
Fine.
start the process, and
Yeah.
probably the people will
Right,
moan, and
I'll
hopefully the
bring-
rest will come in 30 days.
Okay, so
I'll bring
I...
a list in,
Fine.
usually shows that they called, we haven't got there yet.
So we need a motion that Zone A and B are extended to 6:30:15.
Sure, I'll make that
Rick?
motion.
You gonna make the
I'll
motion?
make the motion to 6:30:15.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor of extending A and B to 6:30:13? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. It'll go to 6:30:13.
I will-
And if you don't have people respond by 6:30:13, you'll fine them.
I will send that letter out, return receipt requested, certified mail, to each individual who has not had the system inspected or responded on the list.
Right.
That's fine.
Draft regulation prohibited smoking on town-owned beaches. We've talked about this, so we need now set a hearing date.
Would you like to set a date for a public hearing for that and adopt it?
Well, I'll have to hear the public
At the
hearing.
very least,
No, I have to have a
at the
public
very least
hearing.
have the public hearing. We'll worry about adoption later on.
Yeah, I mean,
I was
like
kind
I've said, I have mixed feelings about this, so
of leading the witness.
We're
I-
bringing you along.
I want, you probably brought me along, but I want to hear the public comment.
We all do.
Yes.
What date would you like to set?
Well, the question, I guess, is whether you want to wait for more summer folks or not and all that kind of stuff. I'm not sure they're really going to come in and talk to us.
They're not going to come. I would do it.
So, February?
Yeah,
Regular
actually,
meeting in February, is that enough time to?
is that enough
Oh,
time?
sure.
Let's do it February,
Okay.
okay?
Yep.
The January meeting, as for the third Thursday, I will not be on the island that day.
Okay.
So that's a good reason to wait.
That's a good reason to wait. All right. I thought we did, I don't understand this. We didn't sign this, right? The tobacco?
Actually, you did sign it. I went to send it through a copy machine, and it came out wonderfully, except for the signature page, and it ate it, unfortunately. So I'd love to get that page re-signed.
So we'll sign it again.
Well, I'll find it before the meeting's
Yeah, we'll
over.
Okay.
send it around.
Thank you.
We have a septic loan
Actually, number 5.
paid in full?
Yes, Peter Saradalis has paid his loan in full. Currently, Town Council is working on the release form for this. I simply would like board approval to release Mr. Peter Saradalis from the loan obligation. We can take care of the rest.
Did we file with the registry on these? A
Yeah.
lien?
Yeah.
So you want to release the lien?
Yes.
You know, I'm not, these are reasonable enough size that I'd suggest we think about a delegation to the staff that when a loan is properly paid in full and they're certified, that they be allowed to proceed with it.
Yeah, let's, could I-
That works, but that's a
I would make a motion that the staff can release these loans.
Thank you.
Any second?
No, the only thing I was wondering,
More
Richard, is
discussion?
do you have a list of how many people currently have these loans?
Oh, sure.
Is there a lot?
Oh, yes, and more coming every day.
Like how many?
Oh, don't ask me off the top of my head. I
100?
wouldn't want to quote a number, but we have quite a few.
100?
No, not that many.
Okay.
These are the ones out of that fund we get, like, we have $1 million available.
Yes.
This is the administrative consent, no, this is, yes, I'm sorry, yes, this, the septic system fund, yes, yes.
Okay.
So, do you need a second to your motion?
I need a second to a motion.
Second, I second.
Any further discussion that we will let the staff handle release from loans? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. None opposed. The staff will henceforth take care of this. But you, since,
Approval of an increase in a septic repair loan. This is a loan that has already been approved by the board for $25,482.02 for 24 Gulfview Drive. There has been an extended period of time prior to the actual installation of the system, which now has gone up to $33,000. So they would like the additional fundage from $25,482.02 to $33,000 approved.
So this
It's
is
actually
in-
been approved, we just need the board's signature.
This is in Somerset?
For 24 Gulfview.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember where Gulfview is.
It's near the farm, on the,
Yeah.
yeah, I know.
on the way out to the golf course, it's
Yeah.
on the right.
Yeah. Any discussion? You need an approval or just signatures?
We just need approval.
Need a
May I have-
motion?
May I have a motion?
Made.
The motion has been made
Second.
and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so the loan for 24 Golf has been approved to increase to $33,000. Administrative consent order for 1H Street, Nantucket.
Yes, this is an administrative consent order for H Street in Nantucket, Elmer Gutenberg, in the amount of $30,000.
So remind me, they pay in so much per
They
year
will be
for a
paying
while?
in X amount of money over the course of 20 years or until sewer goes there.
Gotcha.
Right. Any comments, discussions?
Nope.
Do I hear a motion to approve the consent order?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the administrative consent order for 1H Street? Aye.
Aye.
Motion's approved. Okay, now we get down to the real stuff here. Tick-borne disease, hepatitis, I did see...
You have the numbers in your packet.
Yeah.
They are certainly not what we anticipated, but that isn't necessarily bad news.
Well, it's either because of the weather in the spring, or because of our excellent educational activities, or an act of God. I don't know.
Or, all the people went home and missed reporting.
Right. These are all people in Michigan or
Just
something.
don't know.
But anyways, Richard, I would like to see that, if you could send the charts.
Yeah, she's unfortunately not on island this week.
Well, when,
Yeah,
so,
I can certainly have her at the next meeting.
and the hepatitis C numbers are, what, 11 out of 15,000? 10,000?
That's what was
Our
reported.
population, I mean, I think is probably around 15. But when Charlene was here in the summer, she led us to believe that the hepatitis C numbers were on the rise. 11 is not really noteworthy. And
Yeah.
I had thought that as a result of that, learning that Cheryl Bartlett is now the new head of opiate abuse prevention for Cape Cod, that it would be a good symposium topic for this summer, co-sponsored with the hospital. But looking at these numbers, I don't know, maybe we still want to go ahead with it. But
Well, I mean, we have that expertise on the island in a new position. We can still time to work that out. I'm going to go back and see what the state numbers are to see if we're following the state.
Yeah, is this a normal percentage or what is it?
I don't know.
yeah.
So, and remind us all, we do have other diseases besides tick-borne disease, and we're responsible for the health of the island. We have to follow these things. Okay, that's good. That's good news. Yes.
Has the number of tick-borne diseases risen, dropped?
Compared to last year, the number of Lyme disease cases went down.
Considerably?
Yes, considerably, from about 300 to 170. But the babesiosis cases actually went up compared to the previous year. Total number, if there was a total number of about, say, 225 versus 300 last year, the CDC reports that most analyses are underreported by about 10%. So you add a few, and you add those people that visit our lovely island, get a tick-borne disease, and go back to New York, and we can't capture those. So based on what information we have, I would say the incidence went down in 2014.
And can I ask another question?
Please.
Have you ever, I don't know what phrase this, have you ever guesstimated how many cases arrived on Nantucket?
No.
That are not actually got here?
No. I don't think that's many. Because most of the cases are actually people that live on the island. If you look at the
The address?
addresses of the people, that 96% of them are Nantucketers. So most of the cases are derived here. So,
Ask away.
go right now. This is important, and I'd like to think that we did some better education, but we will continue to see over the next year.
Well, is there any direct correlation, do you feel, between the drop in the number of cases to hunting, deer population, rising, staying the same?
No, the deer population's about the same as it always has been. The only time it fell was the 2005 February hunt.
So then the correlation that the equation you have of number of cases reported going down and the population of deer staying the same, what do you attribute to the decline?
I have no idea.
Education
Well,
or awareness or?
and also the weather in the spring was not very conducive for ticks.
It's dry.
It was really dry. They don't like it when it was dry. So some people will speculate that the ticks did not get off to a good start. A lot of the eggs probably didn't hatch, and those small larvae that came out didn't survive as many. But there's no way to know that for sure. I think if we saw another couple years, we'll see next year. But it's a difficult thing. We can file the numbers, but Reasons, cause, and effect, I can't tell you for sure.
Just to hunting, is the season over yet? I don't really know offhand. Do we have counts on taking how many?
Oh, the season, black powder just started, it runs through the 31st.
Right, but shotgun,
I just saw something in the paper said the council of all, I think was doing.
that's all I saw it right up front, and I hadn't heard a follow-up, so.
We'll continue to file now. Just as-
Anecdotally,
So you're
I
going to
am
talk about
told,
hunting, or the...
I'm told about the bow season, that the bow hunters were allowed to log their deer in on the internet,
Yes.
and
Everything through the Fish and Wildlife this year is
It-
online.
Is online.
Acquire your license online.
and word that I have received anecdotally is that most guys did not bother to log their deer online.
Right.
They knew there was nobody checking them, so we will not have an accurate deer count number this year, I don't believe.
I didn't want to throw this thing out, but that's true. The honor system was not on.
Right.
Is that true for shotgun as well as bow? you said?
Well, during shotgun season is 2 weeks, okay? And you only have 1 week, not even a full week, of Fish and Wildlife people maintaining a check-in station. So there again, your numbers are going to be skewed a little bit.
Yeah.
There is a guy that works for the fire department that will check in here if you call him, but a lot of people don't do it.
Numbers,
Numbers are really not going to be.
yeah, I agree. Numbers of everything are a bit
Okay.
screwed.
Let me ask you one question. Richard, is there a way that we can assure that there is someone during deer season to be there?
The request
Is it our
certainly can be put
responsibility or
in,
is it Fish and Wildlife? Whose responsibility?
the request can be put into Fish and Wildlife. I was not made aware of this until just a couple of days ago, otherwise I might have said something, but I wasn't aware of this. I'm not a hunter, and I just simply thought that everybody went out to the sewage treatment plant and logged their deer in out there. Turns out not to be the case.
So how do we correct that?
The best we can do is hope that next year they have somebody down here year-round if we put some pressure on them.
Okay, so, I mean, there's nothing we can do. Can we send a letter?
We can certainly send a letter for next year's hunt, yes.
Okay.
So we might want to ticklerize that for September or something. It wouldn't hurt to send a letter, see what the heck happens. I mean, they might have budget problems, they don't have people to run around and do, I have no idea.
Well, their head deer guy is left, so there's, I don't know what the management supervision is.
Well, this isn't a new problem. It's traditionally been Fish and Wildlife only come down during the first week.
So
Right.
that's the norm, in other words.
It's been like that for years and years and years.
Gotcha.
All right. And Richard, do you want more on ticks and deer? You want to talk about your talks with the health department, or do you want to do that later?
I'll go on that, I'll get that in the end.
At the end, okay. Now, Richard, the next one is proposed another bylaw regulation for keeping animals. I read through that. I found it interesting.
Right now,
Could you give me the background of why
right
it's
now,
been...
the town of Nantucket has a very small section piece of bylaw that is in your packet.
Yeah.
It really is extremely old and does not address the current issues we seem to be facing with animals and farms. As Nantucket moves from a more wide-open, less populated environment to a more densely, more rural populated environment, housing is now encroaching upon traditional areas of farm animal raising, for lack of a better word. We are also having issues with individuals who don't move to Nantucket. They are bringing their animals with them. This initially started out about 6 months ago, perhaps a little longer, as a rooster problem. There were many roosters on the island who, in a very residential neighborhood, were an irritant to the abutting neighbors. We have had a modicum of success in asking these people to remove their roosters. We do not have any regulatory authority to do such. Nuisance regulations have to go through the court system and take months and months and months. I have researched regulations with regard to farm animals and took 4 town regulations and/or bylaws and condense them into this one regulation, which I believe addresses the concerns of those individuals not involved with any form of raising of animals who happen to live in the area. It doesn't preclude the raising of farm animals. It simply offers some guidelines and some directives should they be kept in an area where they could become a nuisance, either via noise or manure or things of that nature.
So the roosters are on page whatever here.
Yeah.
I see them.
Interestingly enough, I wanted to just do a rooster regulation,
Yeah.
but it just didn't seem appropriate.
Well, see, then, I'm not sure the rooster regulation would be a health issue, but the
No,
rest
but
of
it is
the
a
rest of
noise
the-
issue.
is a health issue.
It becomes a nuisance under Massachusetts general law, the nuisance regulations.
Yes.
They could be cited for that, but that's court action and requires months and months
Right.
of court activity.
But my concern when I first looked at it was, I'm not sure, it's a nuisance, but is it a health issue or an environmental issue?
I think it can be a health
The
issue.
rest of it, though, you talk about sheep and all that, there's enough in there
Right.
that I
We-
consider a health issue.
I can speak to two incidences on Nantucket that we have currently going, where roosters are within 30 feet of an abutter's property, and at 3 o'clock in the morning, when they start crowing and you can't get back to sleep, that becomes a health issue.
So every morning, I live close to the water. Every morning at 6:30, the steamship whistle goes off. So can I take them to court for as a nuisance?
Are you a
Theoretically, you probably could.
I don't use an alarm anymore. Okay, so
But, you know, like this is, we're all sort of chuckling, but
It's
this was
important.
serious enough. Several years ago, we had a citizen article at town meeting. I'm aware of an event where someone figured out how to take care of roosters magically. And so things happen, you know. And so it may not be a bad idea to
Now-
admit that roosters could be a problem.
This is
Correct.
here for your review and just your review only. Right
Okay.
now, this is in the hands of town council. The determination to be made by town council is, should this be a local Board of Health regulation, or should this be a town of Nantucket bylaw responsive to the Board of Selectmen?
Okay, so we shouldn't be worried about this, just
So
read it.
don't worry about it, other than the
Okay,
fact that
thank
it is
you.
presented to you.
Okay,
I will
fine.
have that answer by the next meeting.
All right.
we may see this again.
Yes.
Now,
Just one small question. The Agricultural Commission, or those committee, those guys, gals, you might want to send a copy to them or something, you know?
Right after I find out who they are.
Okay, they do exist, and
I didn't
I know
realize
they're
they did.
interested in, we've had some email exchanges about farm animals or something.
Okay, I'll be happy to contact them and
Richard,
discuss.
everyone that has hens and roosters has to have a permit, so you know who has them and who doesn't.
That's correct. That's, theoretically, that's correct.
Okay.
We are
Oh, you
finding
should
more and
know.
more
Absolutely.
that do
Okay.
not have the appropriate permits.
Okay, fine.
okay, now we get on to discussion of Regulation 69, corrections of new and existing publicly owned sanitary sewer lines. And I have some background. You want to give me some background, or you want to start with what the regulation
In
is? 'Cause
2003, at the behest of the town of Nantucket, the Board of Health adopted a regulation that mandated individuals who own property abutting a municipal sewer line must connect to that sewer line. This regulation in 2003 was specifically designed for those individuals living on Monomoy Road, as the sewer had just been installed and extended on Monomoy Road. We wish to find a legal means to mandate everyone please hook up for harbor issues and things of that nature. That was done, and we received excellent participation. People hooked up. Following that, there was a lack of communication between the Department of Public Works and the Nantucket Health Department with regard to new sewer lines going in. We did not keep track of the new sewer lines that were going in for many, many years. Therefore, These sewer lines went in streets, and although the regulation existed, we did not mandate those individuals connect. Some individuals who built new homes connected automatically. Unfortunately, those who had existing houses did not connect. It has become an issue. When the Department of Public Works under Kara did a survey, they found well over 100 people who had not connected to existing sewer lines in the street. A letter was sent over a year ago to those individuals mandating connection. We received some connections, no more than 12 to 18, I believe. There are many more out there that need to be connected.
And Richard, that's in the recent letters, so there were like how many?
No, this was previously.
Oh, previously, okay.
Now,
Just so I get that.
recently, the Nantucket Health Department resent letters to all individuals on that list. We did not send them return receipt requested, which was a mistake. We did not send them certified mail, which was a mistake. We have had individuals come into my office informing me that they never got the first letter. We have no way of proving that that's accurate. Don't know.
Did they get a letter? I mean, I'm just reading the regulations. It says, connections to sewer shall be complete within 2 years of notice of the availability of line for connection. So there has to be a notification that they have a sewer line, or do they just look out in the street and see a big ditch?
Well, they don't necessarily know that the sewer line has been put in the street, particularly if they're an off-island resident who only uses the house on a seasonal basis.
Right.
So letters were sent to everyone, and we don't know whether they got it or not, which was my mistake. I should have
Well,
sent
I'm
them
talking
out
about this year,
certified
but back when the
receipts.
sewers were first put in, was there notification?
Yes. Yes, there was notification.
There was
But
notification.
only to those individuals on the existing sewer line, which was Monomoy Road.
Okay.
Right, when you said you didn't keep track, they stopped keeping track.
Following-
As the sewers went in, so as those sewers went in, those people were never notified.
That's correct.
So
there
now
is-
you're notifying those people.
Now we are notifying them.
And are you giving them, what are you giving them, a year, 2 years?
Well, it says in the regs, and we have to follow as best we can, that there's 2 years once they're notified, unless they're environmentally sensitive area. They should complete the required connection within 6 months or not greater than a year. And there's another statement in here that we can't make variances in environmentally sensitive areas. So that's what the regulation says.
What I would like to see is for the board to take no action at this point, allow perhaps a small committee of myself and perhaps Steve and another member of the board to sit down, review these regulations, and ascertain if they are applicable to our current situation or they need to be updated. We now have situations such as this here. This is a subdivision that's gone in on Old South Road. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There are approximately a dozen lots. They are pork chop configurations. The dwelling units are on the back portion of the property, and they have large, what we call rat tails, coming up towards Old South Road, 400 feet away. The question, by regulation, each individual is going to have to put in his own line. I think the question is, do we find a way to get these individuals to put a central line in? I think there's a lot to be done here. And I think there's a lot of clarification that needs to be made in what I think are old regulations at this point and need to be updated.
Well, I think that's the first issue. Looking at these, I think they need to be updated, because I think, again, in a non-environmentally sensitive area, even 2 years to me is too long. I mean,
If you're going to hook up, you're going to
you
hook
got to
up.
hook up. It's a year. And that's just, as we said before, we have not just an officially environmentally sensitive area, we have an environmentally sensitive island.
Richard, let me ask you a question.
So-
Is in these areas, are there any of the chances that these people, if their system failed, they would have to put an alternative system in, or is it just these are strictly regular septic systems?
It depends on a number of issues. It depends on if it's in a watershed protection district.
Right.
It depends on whether there's a well on the property. So that cannot be a generic answer for that.
Okay, all right. And so we don't know if some of these systems are alternative?
Well, if they have access, the system fails, they have access to the sewer. It's
I got
going to
the
be
sewer.
cheaper for them to hook
No,
the
no,
sewer
no,
up.
I'm talking about like saying, okay, you say now you've got a hookup and some guy a month ago or 2 months ago spent 60 grand, you know.
Well, they wouldn't do that if he knew the sewer line was in the road, so, I mean, that might be down the road
Yeah.
when they go to
Okay, just some-
extend mains.
Okay, fine. All right. Richard, I would like to get on that committee.
I'm inundated with, well, I'm not,
Well, we've got two issues here, and let's take one at a time. The first is, I think there's a sense that these regulations need to be reviewed again, and
no
perhaps
doubt about it.
So I would have no problem if you worked with a couple, formed your own committee, and got back to us in a relatively short period of time for what you think is reasonable regulations. The other issue is we have a bit of confusion. We have a lot of upset citizens who got a couple different letters saying they had 9 months to fix this.
All of those individuals who call, I have told them that, please file the letter away. We will be meeting with the Board of Health. I will inform you of what the directives will be at that point. What I'm hearing more about are individuals who are on fixed income who simply are telling me they can't afford it.
Yeah, well, they can't borrow money at 2% for 20 years, right?
Yes, promptly followed by the comment, I can't even afford the loan.
You can't afford.
So there are a lot of issues, but, you know, it's interesting, though, these lots are one thing, but not everybody's in that situation.
No, I agree. I agree. But this is just one of the unique situations that there may be a better answer for. I don't know.
And then, just to go back to the second issue, and then in the letter you talked about 9 months. What was the 9 months? The original letter said something about you had 9 months.
Yes, the actual hookup date was 9 months from May, which meant that they needed to be hooked up by the middle of February, by the end of February.
And why did you select 9 months? I'm just curious.
That was a decision by the then board of '03.
The Board of Selectmen?
The Board of Selectmen, Board of Health, they set specific dates within X amount of notification. I felt that I had notified these people months ago, and I'm using that date by saying you had a year, but now you've only got 9 months because it was 3 months ago.
I'm still confused, though. If the regulation says you have 2 years, we have no documentation of when they were actually notified that they had a sewer.
We had, well, no, the sewer has been in for some time. These sewer lines, these new sewer lines.
I know. But if we want to follow it strictly, it says that they have to be notified within 2 years of the availability of a line. That's the 2 year. That's when the
And they
clock.
were not
is-
notified.
They were not notified.
No.
That's the issue.
They were notified,
So the letter Richard said, aside from the return to sea issue, might suffice for a notification that there is a sewer line in front, in addition
Yes.
to whatever else you asked them for.
that letter went out.
You know what I mean? I'm not the lawyer here. But
Right, but if we clarify the letter some way to these people, now they have 2 years from that point? I mean, that bothers me again.
He's right, that's what he's saying.
And that's
He's saying
fine. That's
you
why we
can't
need to
have
look
2
at
years
these
and then all of a
regulations
sudden say you got
and
9
make
months.
substantive changes to them.
But that would mean that these people now being notified have 2 years.
Not if we change the
Well,
verbiage
you're
of
going
the
to find
regulation.
people saying, is it prospective or retrospective? And I could just hear all the issues from people who would like to avoid this altogether. So,
It's going to be like Hummet Pond inspections again.
yes, so
It's
whatever the reg is, you know, you may find yourself having to, I'm just talking out loud here, you know, deal with the existing situations under the current reg. And
Right, if they-
then you get new regs, and the next time you run a sewer line,
Right.
you're operating under the new regs.
Because if
You know.
the original thing said 2 years and you can't prove that they received a letter 2 years ago, then you can't,
Then they've got
we
2
can't
years.
say 9 months now.
You might be able to legally. I'm not sure we want to fight that battle, though. You've got someone out here. But
Yeah,
can I go back and say,
Yeah.
a lot of this has to do with, the underlying issue of making sure people do get on the sewer system. It's good for public health and all that kind of stuff.
Not a question.
So I think there are good reasons to do this. It's the mechanism, how you get it done. And then all the issues which we have with sewers in general, in addition to this, about equity, your situation, did the guy put in a $100 million septic system yesterday? And so we're going to have to think about those issues and so forth. So,
Right.
All right, Leslie, you had a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This matter came to my attention, and I think it's, very, very serious. There are, 100 plus, mostly year-round residents that received this letter. We've received lots of comments in our office from, very concerned people that, don't have the money, don't have the resources to, make this level of improvement. I'm concerned that the proper procedure wasn't followed relative to your regulations. And I think that, some resolution needs to happen today for these people on this list. Whether you, maybe vote to just rescind the letter and not take any action right now until you have more time to consider it, so those people are notified of that. Or if you vote to send a new letter establishing a 2-year time frame to go along with the current regulations. I mean, that's up to you, but I think that it would be best if you all come to some resolution so we can let these people know how they need to proceed and not have this worry hanging over them.
My sense, and let me see if the board agrees with this, is that, first of all, some letter has to go to these people because they're not very happy and they're very confused. And I don't want to, I think we need to change these regulations, but we can't do it retroactively.
Yeah, I don't know if that's literally the case. I'm just, often that comes
But
up.
as for now, we have to deal with the situation. So I would say that the letter has to tell them that there are, 69 says you have 2 years to connect your sewer, and we're informing you, you have a sewer line in front of your house, which is kind of silly because I'm sure they all know it's there. If you're an environmentally sensitive area, you have 6 months. That's what's clear here. And the problem, if people really object in the environmentally sensitive area, according to these regulations, we really can't even give them a variance unless it's weather or something.
We probably have to define what's environmentally sensitive versus
Well,
a
there are-
sole source aquifer for the whole island.
No, but there are specifically designated
Are there
environmental, yes,
areas?
sensitive areas. So that would be, if the board's comfortable with that, I think the health department has to issue a letter. We're sorry, dear resident, we're sorry you're confused. And you can say, maybe we were confused, you don't have to say that, but sorry you're confused. And that as per the regulations, we are informing you today that you have a sewer in front of your house and you have 2 years to hook up. And if you're in an environmentally sensitive area, you have 6 months.
So that letter will serve as notification.
That
from
would,
date.
that will serve, I see, 2 purposes. It'll apologize for the conclusion, for the confusion, but it will also follow the regulations, informing them that they have to hook up in 2 years or 6 months, whatever it says here. For an environmentally defined area, 6 months. Now, the problem with this is it says, it's a little confusing, that's why this needs to be rewritten. Defined areas by the Nantucket Board of Health, but then it actually says property owners shall complete the connection. The letter's coming from the Department of Public Works, too, so that's a little confusing in the regulation, whether it's from the Board of Health, the Health Department, or the Public Works. So somehow the town has to be informing them they have 2 years or 6 months. And then the
Who's
group,
the Whistler?
that's my phone.
Oh, thank you. I mean, we're sort of wondering who's spying on us back here.
I can't open my phone because there's a regulation that when you're on a board, you can't be talking to things.
We could waive the regulation for you to turn off your phone and then
turn it
we'll
off.
reimpose it.
That would help.
Please. The regulation, yeah, thank you.
Oh, come on. The trouble is, these are, there we go. All right, so, can I have, just to be very official, can I have a motion, that's the procedure, that we will reissue the official letters and a letter of apology with those stipulations?
And it serves as a notification that time starts when they receive the letter.
Yes.
If they have 2 years.
Prior to sending the letter, I will run it by the chairman of the board.
Right.
I have no problem with that. You have a problem?
It will go out, return receipt requested, certified mail.
Right. And add the thing about the environmental protective areas, because that's, they have a shorter time. We'll take one more well, let's do this vote, and we'll finish.
Do you have a second on that?
Second.
So just to be clear, this is following the existing regulations, period, so to speak.
We are going to make a motion that we are going to follow the existing regulations, that we're going to, in a sense, now, after years of have not done so, or maybe so and lost, follow the regulation and inform people of the rules and the time to hook up.
Okay, before we vote on this, I have one question. If these regulations are rewritten, that 2-year period only is for the people that we forgot to notify.
That's a legal question.
Yeah, a comment on retroactivity, I would recommend somebody look at that. I mean, I'm not sure. Or we may just feel for a public policy point of view, just accept that and not fuss with it.
Yeah.
I think
Just
for
to
a
be
public,
realistic,
I
you know.
think that's the appropriate.
Right, and
the cleaner approach.
new regulations are not going to be for 6 months at least, maybe, and we have to deal with these upset citizens. All right, so, any further discussion? All in favor?
All right.
All right, so you and Leslie and your people will figure that, and I would love to see it before it goes
That
out.
would be good. So the chairman has a chance to look at it.
Malcolm?
One quick question.
Tobias Wooden.
Yes.
I'm a member of the Board of Selectmen.
Yes.
I just wanted to relay that I think I like hearing your discussion. It would be nice to hear the regulation reworked so that it could be implemented sooner. I know we're having a lot of sewer issues coming in the future, and that would be nice to see that reworked. And I also wanted to express that I did get a couple phone calls from people who feel that they could not pay, and it would be important. I think that it's a useful public benefit, but it's necessary, I think, for the town to have some sort of mechanism where we could put a lien on someone's house or a betterment, so that there are people who are living on Social Security that can't pay, and I think if
So
we
it's sort
just
of-
communicate that, that's
I agree.
useful.
We have to find the balance, but we do, again, look what's happening to our eelgrass from the nitrogen. This is something we need to do, so the town has to find a way to help people.
So the whole question of abatements and all those other issues, I gather, are not addressed in the current regulations. We can always deal with them in the new regulations if appropriate, and we can always take them on a case-by-case basis under the current regulations.
Right.
Just so we're clear.
It has to be written, yes, the ability to give variances by this regulation are quite limited. You know, it's mostly weather, whatever that means.
Richard, is there any mechanism that can be written to take care of people with sewer connections like we have for septic systems?
What do you mean?
A loan?
That is a viable portion of the septic system management plan loan program. That loan program will pay for any work to be done inside the house and in the yard of the property out to the street. That loan money will be able to pay for all of that work. It will not pay for the fees associated with the flows from the sewer or what's the word I want, Kara?
The connection?
The
The
privilege
privilege fee. It will not pay those.
The privilege fee is what, $9,000?
63.
All right, I think Richard and his little committee,
All right.
when, to draft new regulations, get input as appropriate, and think about financial help in some way. If you, and how long can you get back to us with a first cut?
Oh, I think we can do that by next month.
Yeah, if you move along, that's
If
helpful
we,
to everybody.
I would love to be there, so if the board has no objection, I'd like to move the meeting to the Thursday following the third Thursday,
The Thursday after
that.
we can do that.
Sure.
Because I think this is important and I want to be here. If you could,
Yep.
obviously you won't have the regulations, but you'll have a report on your progress.
You know, it might be helpful, just so, I assume you have a list, and to share the list with us. For example, I got a copy of the list for the other topic last night. And it's interesting, it's just informative to scan. You get a sense for the addresses and, you know, their names you'll recognize. It
Sure,
just gives you a
I get you.
feel for
I get
things,
you.
so that would be helpful.
Okay.
Okay, terrific. I see Mr. Barnes is here. I know you wanted to hear about animals, but we actually have already discussed that.
The vote was late.
The vote was late. We just discussed the fact that we were going to discuss it, and Richard is working on figuring out, is it a health issue or a selectman issue?
To me, is like solving a mosquito problem with a sledgehammer.
Well-
For example, 300-foot radius for a butter notification is 10 times what you do for the HDC.
What I would wait and see what comes out of, and where these regulations actually end up, because there's some,
I'll see if I can make an appointment.
and then we will, at some point, we will, it may never come back here, it may actually go to the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, that's confusing, too.
It's always confusing. All right, thank you. What else? Where are we here? You need signatures?
Signatures to the Nantucket Electric Company. The Nantucket Electric Company has requested that be removed from the agenda.
Okay, that's right, I saw that. Emergency condemnation, 3 Rusty's Way.
You have in your packet a description of a situation we ran into on December 10th, which involved an unfortunate death in a basement of a single-family dwelling. The basement portion of the building had been had been constructed into 4 bedrooms, construction without a benefit of a permit. The walls were plywood, the ceilings were made out of silk and or plastic, windows were closed shut, some rooms didn't have windows. There was one means of egress, and that was partially obscured. It also had a furnace in the basement, which was of the type found on Macy Lane that was associated with the carbon monoxide poisonings of a year ago. The health department was called by the state and the local police and the fire department. We inspected the property. We condemned, under emergency condemnation proceedings in Massachusetts General Law, Human Habitation Code, as documented, and we condemned that portion of the building. It has been placarded and shut. I have gone out to that building on 2 separate occasions and surprise inspections and found that there is no occupancy of that basement portion of the building. What I am asking for is ratification of that condemnation notice.
Any comments, questions from the board?
Did you request that everything inside there be taken apart, disassembled?
That is the responsibility of the building department. I believe those orders have been issued.
Okay.
The building department did accompany me.
Anyone? I need a motion for ratification of the condemnation order.
So moved.
Second? Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ratification has been approved.
Thank you.
Any concerns of the board?
Mosquito Control Commission, I'm glad Kara's here. We've passed legislation, but we're not done yet. We received word from the State Reclamation Board that they required our resumes, and the State Reclamation Board, I believe, met yesterday, and they supposedly will certify us. And then we have a meeting in the 3rd week in January where we will talk with them. The tone of the email seems to be that they're in control of us. That's not our understanding. But we'll just wait and see.
Okay. So
Okay.
you're
Kara, if you've got anything on.
No,
You're moving forward.
Once we speak with them and determine what they think they're going to do with us, we'll tell them what we think we're going to do with them.
Right. Good for you.
Well, everybody was reasonably pleased last year with the whole effort, so it's a wonderful beginning.
I think you all did a great,
Fortunately, the
Yeah.
vendor has.
I think you did a great job. I wished we could do as well with ticks, but you seem to have done better with mosquitoes.
You know that Dan Martin has interested.
Yes, I know, I've talked to him. Okay, Richard, what do you have for us?
I have two issues, two comments. In January, I will be meeting with a representative from the Department of Public Health. They have offered us assistance in attempting to operate and/or establish a program where wild-caught deer meat may be distributed to nonprofit entities and may even be able to be distributed in retail and wholesale markets on Nantucket. They heard me. They heard me. And I happened to sit at the right table at the health officers conference and was introduced to the folks there, brought the concern up, and immediately, a week later, got a phone call from DPH saying, we would like to work with you on this. One of the stumbling blocks will be the Department of Fisheries and Wildlife, and their concern for farm-raised animals can only be sold retail or distributed to nonprofits. Obviously, the deer are not farm-raised animals. Their concern are migrant deer coming into areas of healthy deer. We have, indeed, a farm-raised environment because we do not have that interaction between area deer. So that is a case.
One big farm.
That is one big farm. We just can't get away from farms, can we? And so I'm looking forward to those conversations. It may require a trip off island or two to talk with them and spend the day trying to hammer out some issues with FDA, because there is also talk about them fostering FDA to come in with a processing unit that may, during deer season, process this meat under FDA guidelines, which would be an even greater asset.
That'd be terrific. When is this meeting you're having?
I am to call them shortly after New Year's, and we will start setting up dates.
Okay. I would love to participate in those meetings.
I would welcome that.
I will be gone for 2 weeks in January.
I think we won't move that quickly.
I'll send you a note when
Thank
I'll
you.
be back.
The only other thing I have is of a personal nature. As of this morning, I have submitted my retirement request to administration, effective the last day of May 2015.
Well,
It's time. It's
Well,
time.
good luck, and, well, you're still with us for 5
Yes.
months,
You
right?
got me for 6 months.
So, we won't say goodbye or
We won't say goodbye
wish you
till,
good luck or anything.
we won't say anything until May, all right?
I have one thing I'd like to raise if you're done.
Absolutely.
On the fertilizer regs, I'd just like to suggest we consider, this is a little bit, comes out of the noise discussion, but a requirement for a certification, maybe just by landscapers that above a certain size, that they, for example, no fertilizer, I think, should be used after a certain date. And you hear a lot of sidebar conversations that these are not always honored. So I'd like to propose that we figure out a way to require again, maybe by size, so it's not individuals, but they literally sign a form, like I promise, under penalty of perjury, that my firm has not put down any fertilizer after the date in the regulation, signed by the manager or owner. And that helps us in a lot of ways. One, it makes sure they know they have an affirmative responsibility to be honest when they're signing a piece of paper, not just getting a license. And number two, when we find an infraction, be it they're on notice already. And so I'd like to propose that if it, you know, I heard some discussions where we talked about this in relation to noise, you know, how does it work? Well, I think when you sign something, it does work. It's moral suasion. So I'm not sure what would be necessary to accomplish that, Richard, whether we can do it administratively, but I think that's something we need to do.
Well, we could amend the regulations.
If that's what it takes, but.
We could put another sentence or another paragraph in the regulations.
We could. We would have to work with the enforcement agency of that regulation, which is the Natural Resource Officer, but I think we can do
But it's a
that.
self-enforcement mechanism.
Right.
They, you know, you send them a letter, we have a list already of everybody
Sure.
who gets a license. Under the regulation number 46, you have to sign the form which is attached.
I think that's an excellent idea.
Well, I have a question, I have a concern about that, because why don't we put the responsibility on the owner?
I think it's much, the owners aren't licensed. These folks are all licensed under the regulations, so there's already a process, Jim, that they're responsible to implement the fertilizer regulations because we've allowed them to have a license and apply fertilizer. And I think as a practical matter, the homeowners, you know, often aren't here. They're dealing with caretakers or landscapers. They leave at the end of September or whenever. They don't have a clue. So this is, I think, a much easier, readily available mechanism to do it.
So you want no fertilizer? No fertilizer?
I'm just, whatever the regulations
I
say.
think,
Oh, okay.
I think the reg already says something like that.
yeah, the
So
regs
whatever it says.
the regs are fairly complete. That would just be, we'd amend it to number 60 or whatever, and then we'll just ask Richard to look into that, because we're not the enforcement agency, but they are Board of Health regs.
You know, this helps with self-enforcement. You know,
Okay.
it makes a difference, I think, so.
If you could look into that, Richard, for the next meeting?
Yeah.
Just, it's probably one sentence, and we'll amend the regs. Yes?
Malcolm, just echoing Mr. Atherton's comment about amending the regs, I know the Board of Selectmen is having a workshop later on in January to talk about water quality. Unfortunately, I missed the beginning of the meeting, but I was curious if the Board of Health is considering any other, adding any more teeth to the regulations that would bring about some much urgently needed enforcement of bringing about control over fertilizers in the harbor area where the eelgrass is being.
Is this a meeting or a workshop, or you know when it is?
I believe it's January 21st, is that correct, Mr.
Yeah, it'd be the third, I think it's the second or third Wednesday. The town manager, working with, the Natural Resources Director, is going to contact a number of parties who, have an interest and knowledge of the subject, and we'll be putting together a sort of a program of how the workshop will work. And hopefully before that, all of those parties will have a chance to express ideas, concerns about how to be more effective in what we're trying to accomplish. And I would think in the normal process, they contact the Board of Health, because
Yeah.
septic systems are part of that issue.
I would love to attend,
Okay?
and if it's those 2 weeks I'm gone, maybe our co-chair will attend, or somebody will.
I will, sure.
All right, hearing no further business and no objections to adjournment, we will adjourn.
Thank you, Carrie.
We can get that list from them, like all
All the guys that haven't connected.
that and
What I'll do is I'll take the list and I'll scan it and I'll email it to everybody.
what else? I was like thinking back.
Happy holidays, Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays.
See you all soon.
Exactly.